All right, it's time for the first mod for our 2025 Nighthawk Gladiator, and that's going to be onboard air. And we're going to be installing that new ARB Brushless Twin, and we're going to be mounting it under the hood using a kit from Grimm OffRoad. Stay tuned. Now we're going to be mounting this compressor right down here behind this flare, underneath the brake booster. And the easiest way to do that is going to get this thing up in the air and pull the driver's front tire off. Now that compressor is going to be mounting behind the inner fender. And there's a couple ways you can do it. We could drill out all these rivets. We could remove this whole inner fender, but it's easier if we just remove the whole flare and fender assembly. So we're going to grab a 10 mil socket, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 little bolts we're going to remove. Now here comes the cringy part. To remove the flare, there are 11 little plastic clips that go down the inside up against the fender. And especially on a new vehicle, they get really tight. So we're just gonna grab this, we're gonna kind of wiggle it a little bit. Ooh, this one is definitely very tight. There we go. Boy, and that bottom one is tight. Okay, you wanna reach up here and unlock that little red lock. Then you gotta squeeze the clip. And there goes our flare. Now I say cringy part because oftentimes you break half or more of these little white clips, and it looks like we broke 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of them. So almost half. You want to make sure that you get extra of these clips to have them on hand. Now that compressor is going to mount right in here underneath the brake booster, and it's going to mount using these 2 studs that are holding this bracket on that holds a wire connector. So we're going to grab a 10 mil socket. Now this bracket comes off. Now if you look here, you got a little clip. We're just going to pop that down with a mini screwdriver. Then we can slide this connector right off. Boom. All right, and then the wire comes over to this little holder right here. We're going to pop that holder off and just swing right down below. This is on the 24 and 25 models. And you can just mount it right down there, and that moves everything out of the way. All right, our next step is to grab a 13 mil wrench, and we're gonna remove the nut right here on the bottom of the master cylinder. And it's gonna be in slightly different places depending on whether you have a Gladiator or a Wrangler. Here's our Grimm under the hood compressor kit. Inside we've got our vent hoses, and we've got our switch and filter mounting bracket, bag with all our hardware. The little mounting spacer, this is what we're going to be using next. Here's the heat shield, and this is what we are after, the twin compressor mount. Now we're going to grab a block of wood. This is a 4x6, and we've got our Grimm compressor mount, and we want to turn it around so these 2 little mounting bosses here are upside down. Then we're going to grab that ARB compressor bracket, and it's going to sit right down on top of the Grimm unit. And we've got our ARB hardware. We're going to grab the bolts. We're going to throw a little bit of blue Loctite on them and go right down into those threaded mounting bosses. Now on the other end, we've got the Grimm heat shield, and that's going to go right in place here. And more of that ARB hardware, a little bit more blue. We're going to go through the ARB bracket, through the Grimm bracket, and through the Grimm heat shield. I'm just going to get a washer and a nut. Okay, now we want to square this up the best we can. All right, with that squared up, we can now tighten things up. Now the first thing we're gonna do is put a little bit of blue Loctite right up on that master cylinder mounting bolt. And then a little bit of blue on these 2 studs here. Then we're gonna grab that little piece right there. That's our spacer. And that's gonna set right on those two lower studs. And now comes the Grimm bracket. And it's gonna go up on that master cylinder stud and on the firewall studs. Make sure you install that master cylinder nut. You gotta make sure that happens. All right, and then we have our two lower nuts. Now we got some prep to do on the compressor. So we want to pull these little red plugs out the back. And this is the pressure switch that comes with the compressor. I'm going to throw a little Teflon tape on it. Make sure you put it on correctly. So we're going to lay it on there. I lay it right across the top, and now I'm going to turn it clockwise just like I'm screwing it in. We want to get about 3 wraps on there. Then you've got these little apex fittings. We're going to do the same thing, throw a little Teflon tape on them, right over the top, and then we're going to turn it just like we're screwing it in. That's going to screw right down in there, and we'll use a 14 mil socket to tighten that. We want to be careful and not over tighten it and break it. Put the nut on the hose. Push the hose down into place, and then just screw this right down. Now for this side, let's get our handy dandy block of wood back out. And we want to unscrew our filters. And from the Grimm kit, we're going to grab the 290s that are barb and then male threaded. They're going to get wrapped with Teflon also. And we're going to screw those right in where the filters were. I got a 15 millimeter wrench, and let's go ahead and get those tight. And this one here, we want to aim up right about there. Now we got to be careful. We don't want to make it too tight right in here. We have to have enough room for the vent hoses to plug in. So now it's time to run our ARB wiring harness. All right, now we're going to feed our harness right through that hole in the center of the Grimm bracket. All right, these are for your 2 motors, doesn't matter which one they go to, and this is for your pressure switch, and again, it doesn't matter what terminals you hook to. There's one, and then our pressure switch, and then our next motor. Set it right up into that quick release bracket. Grab a 10 millimeter socket. We want to remove this fender screw. There's paint on it, so you'll need to push down a little bit. Now in your kit, you'll find a large washer like that. It's going to set right there. Then our switch and filter bracket comes in. Then we can reuse that factory screw. Then Grimm does supply a couple more screws with washers. We're going to run those on. And we have those 2 ARB filters, and we're going to use those other 2 ARB fittings that come in the Grimm kit. Now you've got the 2 Grimm extension hoses. And we're going to throw in those elbows. And you have 2 different lengths. So we can tuck them down towards the compressor. The longer one's going to go towards the front. And you're going to slide it right underneath this hole. And we're going to screw the ARB filter down on it. Now Grimm OffRoad shows this fitting up here at your bulkhead, coming straight back. We've got an extra 90, so we're just going to throw that in there. And let's tighten that elbow up. All right, then we can take our hose and throw our fitting nut on there. We're going to push that hose right onto the barb fitting and then screw the nut down tight. Now on our ARB switch, you want to look at the back and you're going to see two little arrows. You want to make sure those are facing up. We have our Grimm harness, and the top port is going to get the black wire. That middle terminal is going to be red, that's our power in. And the bottom terminal is going to be purple, which is our power out. And that can go right into the Grimm bracket and snap in place. Now for those extension hoses, we've got the one that's a little bit longer, one that's a little bit shorter. That longer one's going to go to the far side, and that's going to plug right onto that fitting we put into the compressor. And then same with the short one. All right, with that done, now we can move up to the wiring. Now this is the ARB switch lead, and it's extra long. You could trim it way down if you want. For right now, I'm just gonna coil it up to get it out of the way. Tucking it down under here. Now on this ARB harness, we're gonna grab that blue, the yellow, and the green wire, and we're just gonna fold them back. And we'll use a little black tape just to wrap them up, get them out of the way. This terminal plug, it's usually in a little bag right on the ARB switch harness. It's already been pulled off on this one. And that's what's gonna plug into the Grimm plug. And so we wanna make sure we get the wires in the right spot. So the red wire that we've left exposed from the ARB switch harness, that's gonna go to the purple wire on the Grimm harness. All right, so we're gonna push it right into that upper right-hand corner position till it clicks. And then you have this harness from Grimm. These two leads, we wanna hook into the red wire and the black wire on the Grimm harness. So red, it's gonna be right next to that red. And then black is below where we have our purple wire. And now we can plug these two together. And that can get tucked down. Now these two wires, they need to be ran over to the battery along with our two battery leads. Right now we'll just run a couple wraps of black tape on it. Okay, now it's time for the ARB positive leads. These go from the battery over to the ARB motors. Let's go ahead and just strip some sheathing off. Even though it doesn't come with it, we're gonna add a little bit of heat shrink. All right, and then you have this little block from ARB, and we are going to tie in both these terminals, one on one leg and one on the other. Now, one thing to note, let's take a look at these two fuses. These are an odd fuse. It's not something you're gonna find in a normal auto parts store, so you might wanna grab a couple of these 60 amp fuses just to have them in your toolbox in case something happens down the road. Now we're gonna pull off our PDC cover. We wanna grab our F58 fuse. So if you look really closely here, here's F58, and that's gonna be this guy right here. So we can grab our fuse puller. We're gonna come right down in here, grab a hold of that fuse, and boom, out it comes. Now we're gonna take that yellow fuse from the factory position, and that's gonna go into the bottom of our fuse tap. And then the upper portion, that's gonna get the included 10 amp fuse. And then we're gonna plug that right into our F58 spot. Then we gotta connect our ARB power lead. Now for the negative wire for the Grimm harness, that's gonna go to one of our fender grounds. Now you gotta install a quick disconnect into the bulkhead. This does not come with either the Grimm kit or the ARB kit. This is gonna come with whatever pump-up kit you get. So get an ARB pump-up kit or a Grimm OffRoad pump-up kit. Either way, it's gonna have this part. Now the last step is gonna be to run the ARB grounds to the fender ground. And there we go. The ARB compressor has power. All right, so we've got everything wired in place. Our ignition is on. Let's go ahead and hit that button. And you hear that first motor kick in, then the second motor kicks in, builds up pressure, and it stops. So there we go. We've got a little cleanup to do on the wire, reroute, make it look good, and we'll run some performance testing. Okay, now when we're putting the new clips in, you're just gonna come in right through the center and give it a little wiggle right up through the center, twist it, and pop them in place. Set the leading edge in first. Now make sure that you clip your wire harness back in. If you don't do that, your turn signal's not gonna work. And we can line these clips up. Put our bolts in, we're done. All right, so everything is installed and running. We got those wires tucked inside that factory plastic wiring channel on the firewall, and we're done. Now, I know what some of you are thinking is, why did we put a high-performance ARB brushless twin in this low-rider Gladiator with these low-profile tires? Don't forget, we're giving this Gladiator away, so it's getting a lift and bigger tires. And then that compressor will be just about perfect. And also don't forget that an onboard air system is far more useful than just filling tires. You can use it to fill air mattresses, beach balls, river floaties, and one of my favorite uses is to blow out an engine bay or the interior after a couple days out on a dusty trail. It'll help keep your vehicle so much cleaner. Now, as far as performance specs on this compressor, we did a video just a couple months ago where we tested the ARB Brushless Twin against an ARB Classic Twin. And in a nutshell, we were able to fill our red Hemi Gladiator, that one with 40-inch tires. We took it from 5 PSI up to 35 PSI, filling all 4 tires at the same time. And we hit 35 PSI in 8.5 minutes. And that's blazing fast for any onboard air system. So if you've got any questions at all on this ARB Brushless Twin or that Grimm OffRoad mounting bracket kit, well, drop those down in the comment section below. I'll meet you down there and answer them. And then if you'd like to take a closer look at these parts, we'll hit those links in that description box and it'll take you right to our website. And that's about all I got for you today. So thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.